Welcome to Certain Point of View, your first step into a much nerdier world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com. Thanks. And now your hosts, Ben Milton and Addy Thomas.
Hey, Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View, another news edition episode. We don't have a whole lot to cover this episode, so we're going to keep it short. Mostly a lot of Star Wars talk. We'll probably just have some more fun with Star Wars talk and extrapolation out of that. But don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family and light acquaintances who you know are a little bit nerdier. All of that information you can find on our website, certainpov.com. Our website, again, is certainpov.com. Well, all right, the Emmys happened Sunday night, but honestly, we really don't care.
Who cares?
So, yeah, so that's it for that story.
If I wanted to watch or hear a bunch of political statements by celebrities, I'd spend more time on Twitter.
So filming for the third Avengers movie wrapped in July, but not everyone involved got the same amount of access to the in-progress film. Some actors like Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky Barnes or the Winter Soldier, didn't even get to read the script. I didn't need to read a script for the last movie, so I was kind of in the dark, he said, which is always okay for the Winter Soldier. Despite that lack of information, though, he said he didn't have a lot of trouble getting into his scenes. He said, "I think there's just an element of trust. It's a family system, and at this point, I feel like between the writers and the Russos, everyone kind of guesses their next move, so to speak, and I feel they know very well what I'm going to be bringing."
Yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense to me, and I, as a guy who doesn't like spoilers, like I kind of appreciate it, like the fact that they're working so hard so that nobody can accidentally spill the beans. Like, I want to be surprised going into this movie what's going to happen. I don't want to be like, oh, I already knew that it was going to, that they were going to rip off the mask of Thanos and it was going to be Hela all along, like some sort of weird Scooby-Doo episode or something. I would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you kids.
For you meddling Avengers.
Yeah. So,
and Raccoon.
Yeah, and you rotten raccoon. I like being surprised in my movies. I'm working really hard to stay spoiler free on any of the Star Wars stuff that's going on right now. Like, I'm not even looking at toys. I'm avoiding anything that looks like it might lead. Like, allegedly they've already spilled the beans on Rey's parentage.
Wait, so you didn't see the new Lego set of Kylo Ren's new starship that reveals he's Rey's sister?
No, I missed that. Oh. And now I have to have my mind wiped.
There's a bumper sticker that says, "Rey's my sister."
Rey's my sister. I love it. So I've been avoiding like all that kind of stuff just so that I don't I'm completely surprised when it happens. I know I'll probably be one of like 8 people in the,
right,
in
that's
the world.
actually surprised.
I'm like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming. They're like, Pete, that's been in the news for like 6 months. Like, where have you been? Avoiding news sites. That's where I've been.
That's the funny thing, especially because of how spoiler just how people are constantly on the hunt for spoilers for these franchises like the Avengers and Star Wars. I was about to say Luke Skywalker, but obviously he's a real person, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill posted.
If you say so.
Right. Mark Hamill posted on Twitter recently a picture of this comic from I think it was one of the Star Wars comics in the 80s called The Last Jedi, and he said, I hope no one thinks to read this for any spoilers. And then news sites started like picking it up and started saying, "Oh my God, is that really what the script is based on?" He's like, "No, I don't think Rian Johnson spent time writing this script that was in this 80s comic."
It was a badly written 80s comic. But here's the thing about spoilers: like, it's in the name. Spoil.
Right.
Like, automatically it's telling you're ruining something. Like, nobody likes spoiled food.
Yeah.
Why would you like a spoiled movie? I don't get that. I just prefer not to have. So I'm excited that Marvel is being so careful about the fact that they're not even the actors don't know fully what's going on. That's a good thing in my mind.
Well, it's official. Boba Fett will be played by Jon Hamm. However, it won't be on the big screen or the small screen, or any screen for that matter. Hamm will play the legendary bounty hunter in an audiobook of, and Yes, this is a real book from a certain point of view.
Those bastards, they stole that from us. They
stole it from us.
I want money.
Right?
I demand a copyright.
I think it might have to go the other way.
Yeah, let's not make a big deal about this.
Yeah, we're just going to let this one fly, guys. It's a new 40th anniversary Star Wars anthology tale that's gathering short stories set in and around the events of A New Hope.
So is he going to use the Kiwi accent?
Yeah, I don't see Jon Hamm doing that, but
I
he
do.
has to, right?
I do. Like, he does like some, like the silly accent that he uses in Kimmy Schmidt, the Southern.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
true.
He will, like.
I'm sure he'd
he's
do
a
it or get a
goofy
dialect
dude.
coach, even if it's for Audible, you know.
I would.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if they're hiring him to begin with,
they're spending some money. They're going to spend some money to get Jon Hamm to even just to voice track something. I imagine they're putting some money into it, which is a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they're just throwing, you and me in there to
yeah, exactly.
well,
that was one of the issues with one of our friends, David Adams, has been constantly on me for reading one of the Star Wars books, Dark Disciple, and I wasn't going to read it, but I was like, okay. I had an Audible subscription for a while, so I used one of my credits on Dark Disciple, which is about Asajj Ventress, and they kind of took some of the scripts that were never produced for for the last season of Clone Wars, and took that and built a little bit more around it to make a novel about that story that I think it was like going to be a 3 or 4 episode arc that was going to wrap up her story, and it like. There's so much of like that alone should be like enough motivation for me to read it because
she's a great character.
She's a great character. I love the Clone Wars. There's definitely a strong Filoni input and I
always
Filoni's.
wondered how her story wrapped up.
Right. However, I just can't get into this story because this narrator just doesn't work for me. And sometimes some of his voices just don't work for me.
Oh, so he's doing voices?
Yeah.
He's just not reading it?
No. And I noticed...
he's doing like what I do to my kids. And finally my kids the other night were just like, stop. Just stop.
You're just not good.
Yeah, they're just read the... Melanie
let
me
goes, know when you can get Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, Melanie goes... Just read the story, Papa. She's thanks, you little twit. Like, God damn, like that hurt. That one stung. When you're getting criticized for voice acting from a 6-year-old, you suck. Like, there's just no way around it.
To be fair, the quality of cartoons nowadays, there's a whole lot to select from.
True.
So.
Like I'm competing against Tara Strong,
right? And D. Bradley Baker,
right?
Yeah. Which D. Bradley Baker would be, I think, a great pick because he can do so many different voices.
True.
You know,
True.
I'd like to see, and I think that's what's encouraging about with this particular book. If they're headed in that direction, I don't necessarily need Jon Hamm to read all these books, but like if you could get to some of these other talented voice actors have actually, one of the issues that they've been having is a lot of Hollywood actors have been taking away a lot of their jobs because of a lot of stunt casting to get like a big name on a cartoon,
sure,
whether it's a movie or a TV show.
Like Jon Hamm.
Exactly, yeah. Well, but if they started getting them for these audiobooks, I probably enjoy some of them a little bit more with that kind of talent behind it. Because the guy who reads Dark Disciple is not talented.
Do you think you would read the book itself though?
Or why not just do it a little bit more like...
It's too late. They've already done it. They're not going to re-record it.
What, Jon Hamm, or are you talking about?
No, Dark Disciple.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously it's too late. But moving forward with other books, like, there's no reason to have no reason not to have a narrator and other talent also.
Money.
I mean, these are Star Wars books. Like, they're...
It's money.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, that's true, too. So,
like, how much money are you making off Audible?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
it's a question.
That's
how much money are you making off of these Audible books?
I'd like to see, but I imagine
enough to hire Jon Hamm apparently, but enough to hire like 6 people.
Yeah, that I wonder. I mean, Jon Hamm isn't reading just. Okay. See, this is an interesting thing. I don't know if from this story and from what I read, I don't think Jon Hamm's reading this entire book because this is a collection of short stories.
He's just doing the Boba Fett story.
Yeah. And I don't know if that even means just the Boba Fett voice along with the narrator.
R.A. Salvatore, they did this for R.A. Salvatore where they had like a collection of his short stories and they got different people to read it. Like Felicia Day read one of the Dritz Stewart stories and I happened to download it. I never listened to I listened to like 6 minutes of it and I was like, all right, whatever. But yeah, it's been done before where they get different people to read like the different short stories. That sounds what this is going to be, like a compilation, and they get different people.
And because
one
it's
big
special,
name that people are like, oh,
right. And I think because it's the 40th anniversary, there's a little bit more reason to make this one a little bit more special.
And it's Boba Fett, so you attach the big name to Boba Fett to make it cool. All right, that makes sense.
So hours after we posted last week's episode talking about...
Literally hours.
Yeah, well, it was a minute from me hitting share on Facebook. Just
like
1
we looked
minute.
so stupid last week. We looked like we had no clue what's going on.
Oh, you guys are like 3 weeks behind.
Look at you. You think you don't even know who the real Star Wars director is,
right.
dumbasses.
So our episode last week, we talked about Trevorrow being fired and some of the statements surrounding it. Well, obviously he got fired on episode 9. Well, Lucasfilm announced just that same day that The Force Awakens director J.J. Abrams will actually direct the final episode of the current Star Wars saga trilogy.
They should retitle this film "Return of the King." I'm so excited that J.J.'s back. I know a lot of people didn't. There's a lot of fans that are upset about JJ, about The Force Awakens. I thought he did a fantastic job.
I think so too, and the numbers show that people went back several times.
I've watched that movie multiple times.
Yeah, and I still enjoy it.
I love that movie. I really do. It did everything it needed to do, which was reset the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And since then, you're right. It painted by the numbers a lot.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that going forward the numbers continue to get painted. It means that it just needed to reset the universe. We'll see what happens. Like I feel like we've already proven that they're not going to paint by numbers by the last movie, Rogue One. Rogue One was not a paint by the numbers Star Wars movie.
Well, see, some people complain that it is though, because it's like, oh well, we know that original territory material is a little bit more safe. We have Darth Vader, we have a Death Star, so.
What did they wanted to change the story altogether? That they stole the plans to what?
Well, right, but I mean that's the concept from the beginning. I think a lot of people there's a group of people who are like, well, why does this story even need to be told to begin with?
Well, I mean that's a valid question.
Yeah.
We all kind of know what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just kind of filling in a really small gap of the story, but it was an interesting story.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite Star Wars movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't I don't view it as a paint by the numbers story. It really wasn't about Jedi. It really wasn't about Sith. It really wasn't about Darth Vader. It really wasn't about the Skywalkers.
It was about the Rebel Alliance.
It was about the Rebel Alliance and stealing these plans and what happened and how
some of the normal
them.
people in the galaxy, to be
Right,
honest.
which was a refreshing direction to go. I think, here's why I'm kind of like I feel like things are okay, is because we're not hearing anything at all about Episode 8. It's done. It's wrapped. It's post-production. They're just finishing touches at this point. And there's no reshoots. There's no new director for that. Rian Johnson apparently has done a fantastic job. He's played in the Star Wars universe exactly how Kathleen Kennedy wanted him to do it.
Right.
And there's no drama. There's nothing going on about this movie that anybody is worried about at all. I think once we see that movie and we see the directions and the twists that they're taking with this franchise, then we can feel even better about JJ wrapping that trilogy up.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more into sort of the J.J. Abrams pick and sort of what we kind of expect from this movie and what he can do, and maybe even, if there's someone else that we kind of prefer. We got a little bit into that last week, but let's continue with this story because there are a couple parts to this story. So. Right. Following that announcement of J.J. Abrams being hired, he's also hired along with co-writer Chris Terrio. I believe Terrio, I think, did a couple rewrites for Batman vs. Superman when Ben Affleck was Ben Affleck brought him on, because Terrio wrote and why am I forgetting the name of the movie that he did with Affleck?
Was it Argo?
Yes, Argo. It was about the hostage situation. So,
Argo.
Yeah, he wrote Argo. So he's a guy who knows, he
can write.
Good talent. Obviously Batman versus Superman's a little bit of his partial stain on his resume.
Yeah, but
it was already a mess to begin with. So maybe he did some things that will
maybe,
never be recognized.
He might have actually put some plot into that movie. Who knows?
Well, the two of them will pen a new script for Star Wars Episode 9. So this looks to be the fourth script for this movie. So just to back up a little bit, films normally do get, several rewrites. That isn't uncommon, especially in big franchises like this. Episode 9 case, though, is a little bit more complicated. So Trevorrow's first script had to undergo major rewrites because Carrie Fisher passed away, and General Leia was a huge character in the first version of that.
Okay.
So
you can kind of excuse that.
Exactly. So Kathleen Kennedy made the announcement officially, though, at one point that Leia would not appear, which was, I know a lot of people were scared about that at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Rogue One had just come out.
And we had like sort of that weird Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, well, Tarkin
Princess
and
Leia.
young Leia,
Yeah.
which Tarkin, I know the first time was a little jarring and a little rough, but it
I
worked
liked it.
for me.
Yeah, it worked. It was the right character.
Right. And so at that point, he brought on his writing partner Derek Connolly, and they wrote a second script.
Okay.
Since Kathleen Kennedy decided not to have Leia in
you gotta write her
episode
out.
9. Yeah.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that's one big question. I think that's a big question for this
How
movie.
are they writing her out of this series? Yeah.
Exactly. And are they even, like, does that automatically mean they're killing her or not?
Yeah.
It's entirely
She's
possible
just not
that they
involved,
don't. Yeah. So then you have, along with that, there was a point where another writer was hired, British screenwriter Jack Thorne was hired to then rework that script. But then Trevorrow was fired, and Thorne, along with that, had been let go. So now we have Abrams and Terrio writing the fourth version of this script,
Of which there will be rewrites.
Yeah. Well, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a clusterfuck, but
so a lot of it seems out of their hands. Plus the Trevorrow circumstances as well. Which,
you're not going to use that. I mean, you got rid of that guy because he was allegedly because he was trying to bring so many of his own ideas into the Star Wars sandbox that you couldn't use them.
Right.
You know, that it was changing the fundamental reality of what they want that movie to be. So you're not going to use that script.
Right. Along with the poor performance of Book of Henry. I think that also is a big factor.
I think that probably like made them a little wary of him, but I think it was mostly his run-ins with Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, but I think you can't separate the two. I think that definitely factors in. What I will say though is I'm very interested, like just as like, you know how like with Star Wars there's so much like almost like a lore and mythology around how the movies have been made, just because of how big these movies are to us. You know, like we're very like fascinated with the process and sort of the drama on behind the scenes that went into the original trilogy and what was so different for the new trilogy and kind of how
things went wrong.
Yeah, and sort of like what created good things through that process and what created bad things out of both processes in that case. I'd be very interested one day I mean, obviously it's never going to be seen. I'm sure they've burned all copies of it at this point, but the original script for Trevorrow, because there was no real hints of any sort of drama with Trevorrow at that point. And it's, you know, there like he had even, as I had understood, he got even a chance, and maybe I'm misremembering this, but that he even shot a few scenes with Leia on some sets that Johnson had already had set up,
right, yeah.
So that he could just have the opportunity to get some of his scenes initially, like early on.
Yeah.
So it'd be very interesting to see what this version of this story with Leia being more prominent, in the same way when, like, you know, Return of the Jedi was, you know, like the original version of the trilogy was supposed to have a couple more movies after it, and the other was not going to be the other sibling wasn't going to be Leia or something.
Right. Yeah. I think we'll probably like in 30 years get rumbling, like get kind of like, well, this is kind of what the direction they were going,
right,
without actually fully seeing a script.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to start talking about it after enough time has passed.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be some sort of Comic-Con event somewhere, and somebody's going to get asked a question. They're going to be like, all right, well, I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough time has passed.
Yeah.
I've got enough money. I don't have to worry about being blackballed, or Kathleen Kennedy is finally dead. I can speak my mind.
Or Hitman are no longer on the job.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's that opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll know eventually. We're not going to know anytime soon.
No,
for sure.
It'll probably be decades before that happens.
Yeah, I think probably 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting, though. There's been, like, information sort of leaking here and there about stuff about Star Wars Underworld and Star Wars 1313 in the last couple years.
But it's taken a long time for that to come out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even that is just, like, little tidbits.
Yeah.
You know, you're still not getting the full story about what that was going to be like. Because I think there was probably some really good, like, from what we've seen, there's been some really good ideas. And I think EA or Lucasfilm I guess Lucasfilm isn't doing games anymore, but somebody would like to use some of those ideas. They were
Right.
really good.
Well, I was reading something recently. The Star Wars Underworld TV show, apparently, one of the ideas at one point was, Boba Fett was definitely going to be part of it, but apparently Palpatine's backstory was also a potential storyline at one point for it, which is a character that, normally I'd say, I don't necessarily need backstory for this character because I don't always need backstory for every character.
Right.
I like him being that sort of simple malevolence, hate, embodied, but, you also kind of have to wonder, what's the impetus to make him such a hateful character to turn to the dark side and carry on this mission for the survival and then reemergence of the Sith.
Yeah.
And what I was reading, it was there was this woman he loved and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
always a woman.
Yeah, I don't know
it's
if
a little
I want...
paint. Speaking of paint by the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. That I'm worried, that's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm glad that story didn't happen. It does make me kind of interested to see what you could come up with.
That's a hell of a woman.
Yeah, right.
That's a hell of a woman to make you that mad.
Do it.
Strike him down.
So with J.J. Abrams hired to both write and direct Episode 9, the initial May 2019 release date has now been pushed to December 2019.
That makes sense. You got to rewrite a script. You got to give him some time to do this. It's no big deal.
Yeah, it's totally sensible. One thing that I think is sort of interesting with this, though, is the Han Solo movie is still slated for May of 2018. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm just kind of Star Wars, just own December. It makes Christmas that much more special for me now.
Yeah, but there's a lot of big name movies that have been trying to jump on that December bandwagon.
Yeah, but Star Wars kind of...
He had Harry Potter doing it for years.
Lord of the Rings
did it. The Hobbit. Yeah, so it's
but
not
those are gone now. They don't really have...
I'm convinced that Jackson is going to do another Tolkien movie. Another trilogy.
After The Hobbit
the Tom Bombadil trilogy.
Now I'm a little bit more interested.
I kind of do want to see that too.
I feel like that has to be a musical, though.
You just got to get crazy high and just watch that movie, I guess. That's the only way.
And if it's a musical, that also means Anna Kendrick is required.
As a possibility, yeah. I don't care. They could put a Star Wars movie in any month, and it's gonna do well. I don't really care.
What I think though is they own December in a way where nobody is gonna get close to them. Whereas in May, are people gonna May is already summer movie season. You're gonna have a couple weeks later. You're gonna have some other big opening. So whereas usually it's you get 6 to 8 weeks where there isn't anything big. With these last couple seasons, it hasn't been until February that the next big-ish movie would come out. Where it was Deadpool 2 years ago, Logan this past year.
Yeah, I from a ticket sales point of view, I guess. I don't, like I said, I mean, they could put it, they could put one out every month and I would go.
That's true. I would totally be there with you.
Here's the question, are they going to continue to put out a movie every year?
I imagine they will. I can't see them slowing down on that.
Every year?
That franchise makes so much money, dude.
It does. But every year? Because now, are you going to continue on with, allegedly the Skywalker saga ends,
right? Well, now. that's
so now you're just into just random Star Wars stories. Are you going to be able to really carry that on every year?
I think you can create a new trilogy that doesn't necessarily need to be a Skywalker story, or you could go Skywalker stories still, even further if you wanted to, or you could go Old Republic era. You could make trilogy. You could make one-offs every other year and continuing trilogies with bigger, more cosmic stories, as sort of the impetus for
I wonder how well. Honestly, I really do. Not that I would totally be into it. And I think a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans would be into an Old Republic storyline, but the casual moviegoer. Once they see lightsabers on a screen, Force users, and smugglers and all sorts of Star Wars-y type of action, I don't think it's gonna. Even non-Star Wars fans get into those Old Republic, CGI trailers. Those are super cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
Wow, that's so rare for me to hear. I know. It's just weird. I wasn't prepared for that.
It happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So with let's kind of come back to Abrams though on this one. So what are your thoughts overall?
I like the choice. I think it's a great choice. It's a safe choice.
Yeah.
Like he's already done a great job in that universe.
Yeah, and I
he
think
understands
we all
the
knew
rules.
we were going to get a safe choice.
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
which is fine.
Yeah, totally. You're not. I mean, they've tried several times now to do sort of the outside of the box, new up and coming director thing. It hasn't worked out very much. So yeah, you were going to get a replacement director that was safe. You were either going to get Ron Howard, J.J. Abrams, Steven Spielberg, somebody in that vein of directors, real broad appeal, popular, safe director.
Yeah.
And you're not getting an art house new director to finish up your trilogy when you've already run into problems with that.
Right. And I'm all for the Abrams pick. One, for a number of reasons. I like him bookending this trilogy. Because whatever your thoughts are on Force Awakens, and I'm someone who genuinely loves Force Awakens, and I totally acknowledge that it is a remix of the original trilogy, and that's fine. But he does have a habit of giving generally satisfying movies. Even his weak movies aren't.
I can't think of
bad.
one real stinker movie.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about
one.
Star Trek Into Darkness. I thought that was
not
pretty,
a stinker.
Yeah, but yeah, it's again it's a pretty
Yeah, I mean the worst thing
his low bar is still pretty high.
Yeah, the worst thing that you can say about that movie is it was okay.
Yeah,
it didn't wow me.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like, oh geez, that movie sucked, man. He should not be allowed to make films. Like he's not.
Tell that to some Star Trek fans though.
No, screw them, man. Screw them. It's not like
Case
he's
isn't going to be happy with me.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. He and I will have it out. We'll hug it out at the end. But it's not like he's who did Bat Nipples.
No, right.
Whatever his name is. Yeah, I'm so angry with him. I can't. Schumacher.
Yeah.
Like Joel Schumacher or one of these other guys. That makes films, and you're just like, oh my god, he's not Michael Bay.
Yeah.
We are like, oh my god, how does this guy still? Who's allowing him to make movies? JJ's a really good to great director.
Yeah, and while I'll also I get where the people who want a more inspired pick. I can see why they might be disappointed, but I also think we aren't putting him in charge of doing sort of the work that a middle movie needs to do in terms of really shaking things up. I think it's good that he didn't do the middle movie, that you had that we're having Rian Johnson. I mean, and who knows if this movie ends up being good, but it from all indications, I'm
the fact
super
that nobody
excited.
is saying anything at all about it. That's all.
It says,
that's good news as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it sounds like it'll be really good and shake things up. At that point, he has a lot of the elements already there, and other than maybe a surprise here and there, he just has to wrap up what someone else kind of set up. And I feel he's absolutely capable of doing that. I think the other thing that anybody who's who feels like, oh, I wish they'd give this to more artsy or interesting or innovative directors rather than a safe director. I think the thing they also got to realize is this is phase one of Star Wars. And if this first trilogy and these first couple one-off movies are absolutely sort of a good sort of... I want to equate it to sort of the phase one of Marvel movies, where you had, the first Iron Man movie, which is still a great movie. You had the Incredible Hulk movie, which, is a decent movie, but is kind of faded into obscurity. The first Thor movie is sort of meh. Cap movie is, debatable with a lot of people. And then you have the first Avengers movie, which, that's when the world was set off for Marvel at that point. Iron Man and Avengers were the two huge moments for the MCU.
Bookended that series, yeah.
But that was sort of Marvel sort of finding its feet in all of those stories. They could kind of figure out what wasn't working for them and what was working for them. And I almost forgot Iron Man 2, which a lot of people, also a very debatable movie, but sometimes I see a lot of people lean more into it's a bad movie, which I think it's fine. I don't think it's awful, but you know, whatever, whatever people feel about that. It has its flaws, but whatever. But I think those movies are a great example of Marvel finding its feet, and Star Wars has to do the same thing too in this phase, because Marvel didn't really get to take major chances until Phase 2 with movies like The Winter Soldier and with Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that's where we can have a chance for once Kathleen Kennedy and all of and all the production that goes into these movies, and story group and all of them figure out, okay, this is really what people are liking from these different movies that we have. We have a good sample size of what a Star Wars movie is now, because that does change from decade to decade. So once they have that, I think then we can move into more daring and more something that's a little bit more ambitious, and still more of like the same sort of stuff that we still enjoy along the way. But I think as long as people realize that they got to find their feet first before they start going nuts with stuff.
Yeah, I think the fan base doesn't have patience. You know, everybody wants now. Everybody wants it to be perfect now, and you know, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to appeal to everybody. And I think at the end of the day, like, I think there's a lot of guys like you and me in our age group that think they need to be making movies for us because we feel entitled to this movie. But the reality is they're making these movies for my kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, and we have to accept that that's who these movies are being made for. Yeah. That these, you know, it's not for us. It's we're lucky that it's hitting our quadrant. Yeah. And that they're like, hey, you can take your kids to this because it's something you know. And, you know, we're suckered into it, but it's not really for us. It's for our kids.
Right, exactly. Which, I'm fine with. Like, most of what we talk about on this show are things that are meant for kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Designed for
I'm barely an adult. Like,
right.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting also because when you hear people whose first introduction to Star Wars is the prequels, you know, that it's a vastly different opinion sometimes you get from people. I don't agree that those are good movies, but there's some people... It was really weird to hear someone really talk a bit about, like, they love the Phantom Menace and how it changed their life forever. And you know what?
More power to them.
At least they're Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, welcome to the team.
Right.
You know, we can debate and rank things. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're all nerds. And, you know, we've talked about this many times. Like, let's just be happy that they're making these movies.
Right.
Like, we could be getting, like, really crappy Michael Bay movies instead.
Well, coming up on in the next week on TV and film, we have some shows premiering. We have Gotham returning. I don't know what season number this is because I stopped watching after season 1, but that's coming on the 21st.
Like season 4.
Yeah, season 4 sounds right.
Sounds right to me too.
Yeah. We have I guess the one big piece of information I do know from passing seeing trailers for it, apparently young Bruce Wayne is already putting on a costume.
Did you see the costume?
It looks
so awful.
It
looks so dumb.
It really does because
it looks so stupid.
It really is. I watched the clip of him rescuing someone and I was like, I mean,
I feel so alive. Shut up, little dork.
Yeah.
This kid weighs like maybe 108 pounds soaking wet.
I know.
He's out there fighting crime.
It was bad.
Stop.
It was bad. It looks like a mix between the Year One costume and a Batman costume.
It looks like crap is what it looks like.
They needed to go back to like just the ski, just the ski mask and keep it simple. I don't know what they were thinking. But again,
they're trying a lot of interesting ideas on this show. I'll give them credit. They're not playing it safe.
The crazy fan theory I've heard is that this isn't going to be this isn't an origin story for Batman, but this is an origin story for Owlman, who is in another in the DC's multiverse, is a guy who's sort of like looks back and has just given up and said the fight is futile and it will kill everyone, good and bad, sort of, and that humanity is the problem, not whatever. Which, like,
he's not wrong.
If that ends up being the end, that could be a great like
story, a real shocking twist for that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of bad stuff along the way.
Just
pure bad television.
It's a long way to go to tell that story.
Exactly.
That would be crazy, though.
It would be. I probably. If
I would go back and watch.
Go back and watch.
I'd go back and watch if that's how they wrap it up. I won't lie.
Yeah. That being said, there were still cringeworthy moments. No matter, even if that is the ending, that there are a lot of cringeworthy moments in that series that I don't care for. But anyway, going back to what's coming up in terms of movies and TV. On the 22nd, we've got two big openings. We've got Kingsman: The Golden Circle.
Yes,
we'll be going to see. And I do plan to go see this other one.
Oh, I'm definitely going to see this other one.
The Lego Ninjago movie.
My family is so hyped for this movie.
Well, I know Aiden watches it.
And Melanie.
Oh, yeah?
They're both into Ninjago now. Oh, my goodness. That's all my family's talking about right now.
I've always kind of seen them in the periphery. I've never watched any of the show.
It's good.
But that trailer is hilarious.
Well, yeah, but the show is actually really good, too.
Is it too? Is it?
Yeah.
So in the exact same vein? So
not quite as slapsticky.
Okay.
But
it's fun.
Great. Yeah, it's a greit story. It gets a really cool universe. I'm jacked to see it.
The Lloyd line has totally has me.
Hello, Lloyd.
So then on the 24th, Star Trek Discovery will be premiering on CBS at 9:30 p.m. So this is I'm totally unsure of with this because I've heard mixed things on this, but that I've heard outside of the U.S. this will be premiering on CBS itself, but inside the U.S. it is going to be on CBS All Access only. I have no idea what is actually right about this.
See, what I heard was they're going to put the first episode on CBS, and then all future episodes will be on Access.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, in an attempt to get everybody to sign on to their crappy subscription service, which is not going to happen because even the Trekkies apparently don't like this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that it's a little too swashbuckly, militant.
So in the same way that they didn't like the J.J. Abrams trilogy?
Yes.
Now that makes me sound like I want to watch it.
A little bit, but I'm not. I'm not paying to watch a Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Under any conditions.
And I'm not saying that as a knock to any Star Trek fans. It's just like I like swashbuckling space opera adventure.
It would be great, but it's not something I'm willing
to
pay for.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's all what's coming up in the next week. Let us know what you think about what J.J. Abrams as a pick for the episode 9 director spot. Let us know what else did we talk about today? Jon Hamm. I knew there was something else that. What do you think about the whole voice actor? And the production behind audiobooks. Like, do you think there should be a little bit more, like almost radio drama-esque, audio drama style production elements that go into some of these audiobooks? You can get in touch with us on our website, certainpov.com. All our social media is there. All the different ways you can subscribe to us are there, certainpov.com. And until next week, stay scruffy, my nerf haters.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Head over to certainpov.com.